Hey, thank you all for staying. It's fantastic to see you all. How about another hand for these incredible musicians in this world premiere? Once again, my name is Nate Chinen. I am honored just to be on stage with these individuals and basking in this music as you all were a moment ago. So spirit-filled, so open-hearted, and just a really exciting and revealing evening. And I thought I would begin with a question about the ensemble, because this is an unconventional assemblage of artists. And so maybe this question begins with Matthew, but then I want to open it up to all of our composers too. How did this instrumentation come to be? And then for everyone else, like, what possibilities did it open up for you when you realized, okay, this is the palette that I'm working with?
I would say it was driven by the artists you see on stage. We didn't have a preconceived notion of specific instrumentation, except we wanted a rhythm section, a bunch of horns, a poet or two, and so these are the people we wanted to work with. And we went through this whole curatorial process with Helen Haynes to kind of cast this project with the artists and thinking about their specific voices, their aesthetic, what motivates them, their backgrounds, trying to have a diverse range of musical styles and approaches to composition and approaches to performance. So it was sort of, it wasn't as if we started with like, we need specific instruments and who will play those. It was, who are the artists we admire most and whose voices would be important for this project.
Who can speak to the palette? Like, who got excited when they realized, oh, this is what I'm writing for? This is what I have to work with? If not excited, who was scared?
Well, I'll just say, that I was very excited when Matt called me and talking about the incredible PRISM Quartet. I work a lot with the natural overtones of my instrument. And one of my favorite inspiring books is a book about saxophone natural overtones, Sigurd Rascher, and that's kind of like the intellectual side. But then the emotional side is that when you listen to John Coltrane, that's all he's doing is natural overtone. I mean, not all he's doing, but the natural overtones, the cry. And I thought about the cry of Jews and African Americans and this kind of united cry. And then that's how that piece was born. And then I said, you got Diane and Susan and, and just people who could jump in and of course, having, and Tyshawn and Ruben and Dave Gilmore and everybody who could dive in and then just like play and embroider this. But that was the core thing, was that timbre.
Well, I was scared. I was petrified. Okay, this is the PRISM string. This is the PRISM saxophone quartet we're talking about, and it was just like world renowned and all of that. And I was so moved when Matt called me and asked me to be a part of this. Seriously, I was so just honored, really. And and so, I'm a string player, for crying out loud. What is the string player going to do? So okay. So I was thinking about it, and I was talking to a friend of mine, actually another klezmer player, Hank Snetsky, and and I was sitting down to him. I said, Hankus, you got to help me write for saxophonist. He's a saxophone player, of course. He's a famous klezmer person, and he said, don't worry about it. Just write for a string quartet and then transpose it. So it worked. That's what I did.
Within about a minute of your piece, which opened the program tonight, I had this thought like, oh, it's a band. You know, what you all created together, like it sounded like you had been working together for a long time. I know that's not the case. This week, as you were digging into this material and really kind of forming this, you know, cohesion as an ensemble, was there a moment when that sort of clicked, or was it like, you know, what was that process like, finding that unity together this week?
Well, that's a different question at the end. What was it like finding the unity? I'll take that one.
All right.
All right. Because I think that's like my particular kind of beloved family part in this. We're all an instant family now, with all the fear, all the trepidation, all the, you know, are we doing the right things? What are the right things? And in this moment in time, you know, we all cared about this moment in time and what we were doing, what this was 6 years ago, whenever 700 years ago when you started talking about doing this project. Yeah, the unity that I saw develop in the creativity, the collective, collaborative creativity that was happening, it studied and in the instant, and changes, all the changes, and all of the support we all gave each other. And I just want to say my piece, my poem, it was let us gather all together, can we? And nothing was planned, and everyone gathered all together with me. And that's how that happened. So I like to give honor, respect, recognition to how we all really, truly gathered together in unity.
Tyshawn, I'm sensing that you had something to add to that.
Actually, I don't. Yeah, I mean, just it's just amazing having such a long time connection to this music and being able to, you know, present this in front of you all, because I never get opportunities to do something like this. And so I want to thank Matt again for bringing me on board for this project, because to me, when I got the call to do this, this was totally a no-brainer for me. I mean, I've studied this stuff. I mean, I've studied this stuff for quite a long time, and just, you know, listening to a lot of recordings, a lot of legendary recordings, everything from klezmer music to cantorial works, classic cantorial works that, you know, are masterpieces, you know, and it's just, you know, and getting familiar with liturgical music and becoming interested in that, and just, you know, having the background in all of these musics, and you know, having an opportunity to merge that with Black American traditions, music traditions. It's fascinating to be a part of something like that, and I couldn't be more grateful to, you know, be involved in something like this, especially at such a critical time, you know, and on this planet. So it's an honor for me.
You know, David talked about overtones, and Tyshawn, your piece really gave us an opportunity to hear the PRISM Quartet in a, you know, with that overtone foregrounded. You know, we really got to experience what a saxophone quartet can really do in terms of blend and just pure sound. And at the same time, like the integration of Ruben and David in that piece really brought a particular dimension too. What was your thought process in terms of, you know, so you have this whole palette, and your decision to focus on the saxophone quartet with bass and electric guitar?
Well, I guess just because I've seen a lot of what all the other composers were doing, and I wanted to do something that I guess in a lot of ways was very different from what the other composers were doing, but at the same time is reflective of things that I'm interested in as it relates to, you know, just not only the historical context of what we're making here, but also just getting deeper into the palette of what I'm working with, particularly with the saxophone quartet, because that's a medium that's a favorite medium of mine that I like to write for. And PRISM is the only quartet so far that I've had the chance to write for. So to be able to explore that in depth, I think was something that I wanted to do a bit more of. And I wish I could have dug a bit deeper than I have, but I think to have Ruben and David also involved in something like this, like I've never heard them play, this type of music, and I just wanted to see what that setup would be like, and it was a amazing result, that I've gotten out of it, and they were so open to and receptive to a lot of, things in the score and things like that, and my conducting it and things of that sort. So it was, it was great to have them involved as well. And originally I was supposed to be playing on it, but then I decided not to, just because I wanted to kind of, I thought of the context of the entire program, and I wanted to, nobody needs to hear more drums on a drummer's composition. So.
But when it's you, Tyshawn,
right.
that's not the case.
So I decided to go that route, for that piece.
Yeah. Susan, as we're talking about these cultures in dialogue, this is something that you really foregrounded in your piece, and taking a really important canonical work from the Black literature and bringing it into dialogue with Yiddish language. This is a really, it's very much in the spirit of this whole evening, and it was very moving. Can you talk us through the thought process behind that piece?
Like the whole thing, or just?
Well, I'm interested especially in taking this familiar piece of music and text and bringing it into another context. And there was a lot going on musically in that piece as well. But I guess my question is specifically about Lift Every Voice and the Yiddish translation and your vocalization. Using language and using that piece of music as a kind of fulcrum for your piece.
Well, let me say that I understand that song is almost a sacred song, and so I approached it with humility and love and respect, and I put the Yiddish to it not to make it something else, but to bring my love for the African American people and to bring the music that moves my heart, to bring that to such an important piece of music to the African American community. I did it humbly and with respect. And like I said, I didn't want to make it something different. I wanted to sing with it. I wanted to be with it. I wanted to be with the people who sing it. And I wanted to sing it in my language too, with the people that sing it.
That's beautifully said. Yeah. I'd like to ask about cultural identity as this shared experience for artists in both the Black American tradition and the Jewish American tradition. Marginalization and persecution and oppression, these are part of the common experience here. And it was, in fact, that spark that prompted Matt to first envision this project. And I wonder if anyone has any perspective on that cultural identity and that experience, and how this project has maybe shed new light on it or helped you to articulate it in a different way. Can anyone speak to that? Or you can just speak to the general idea, because it is such a profound common denominator in these musics.
What's your question?
It's a very big and deep question. I know that for me, back in 2006, with the producer so-called from Montreal and Fred Wesley, the composer of the last composition, we created a band called Abraham Incorporated. Our debut was at Carnegie Hall, which was very cool. And, you know, that was bringing klezmer, funk, and hip-hop together. And I'll tell you, that first rehearsal, when we brought those musics together, I don't think I was ever happier in my life. It was just an insane, because it felt like such a catharsis, and it felt like all of the the histories and histories of oppression, of our shared oppression, just where we could just have a catharsis of incredible joy. And you know, as Tyshawn said, this is a moment in this planet where we really, really need that catharsis, and we need to be together. And as we were working with Ursula, you know, I was like thinking, wow, the Abraham Incorporated legacy coming back and working with these words and poems and ideas. And we got very emotional in that room. There was a lot of crying. There was a lot of emotion, I was holding my clarinet trembling in moments, because it was so, we were really channeling intense emotions. And you know, that's what we need now. We need nuanced dialogue. We need talking. Even if it's uncomfortable sometimes, we need to talk, you know, otherwise we're just gonna annihilate each other, so, you know.
I think that openness that you're describing, and the willingness to go there was evident throughout the entirety of this performance. You know, there was a lot of, speaking for myself, there was a lot of love on this stage, and there was a lot of courage, you know, to really go there. And that brings up something that, you know, has been alluded to a bit on this stage, but, you know, obviously the events of the last 7 months have brought, especially, it's been horrific in so many ways. And as we talk about the relationship between the Jewish American and the Black American communities, it has been very difficult. You know, it's really brought a lot of tension into this relationship. And so I wanted to ask Yotam in particular, because your piece and Myra's piece both reference the word Zion really meaningfully and intentionally. And you have a really international perspective culturally, and I wondered if you could reflect on your invocation of the idea of Zion in your piece, and what it means in this moment with this group of artists.
So in my piece, we hear a spiritual, an African-American spiritual called the Old Ship of Zion. And the meaning of Zion means different things and also similar things to African Americans and to Jews and to Israelis. And so I came to America when I was about 10 from West Africa, and I didn't know anything about the history of Black people here, but I sensed that there was a very big difference between the Africans I had known and Black people in America. And it took me many years to learn about the dark history of African Americans. And I think that the word Zion means something similar in the sense that it means going to a place of peace, a place of home. And that felt to me like something that would connect me to African Americans, and I felt a kinship to African Americans. And I was very dismayed and disappointed to learn that that brotherhood that I thought was just so easy that one could just fall into as a Jew is not always there, that there's a lot of strife between the black and the Jewish community in America. And you know, that's part of life. I sense that we need to just make those personal connections, one against one, one with one. That's how we solve these issues. I can tell you a little personal anecdote that I married a German woman, and my wife had a big art show at the German consulate in New York many years ago. And we had just had a little announcement in the New York Times about our wedding. And a woman came up to me at this vernissage, and she said, "Are you Yotam Haber?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Oh, we've been praying for you." And I said, "Who's we?" And I said, "Our synagogue." And they said, "Well, you are doing exactly what the Nazis wanted by marrying this woman." And she was all the way on the other side of this huge exhibit, and there was a sea of people. And I was aghast, and I couldn't say anything. And then I saw her turn and cross the sea of people to my wife. I couldn't hear, but I could see my wife speaking. And it was like in slow motion. What would happen? What would she do? Very strong woman, my wife. And I just saw this woman talking to my wife, and then my wife just embraces her and gives her the most loving hug. And hours passed, and everyone went home, and I came to my wife, and I said, "Did she talk to you about this whole Nazi thing?" And my wife said, "Yeah, I just told her I think you need a hug." And when I got the commission from Matt, I thought, oh, I shouldn't do this piece. This is dealing with African American music and Jewish music. It's all kind of appropriation. I shouldn't be dipping my toe into someone else's tradition and someone else's culture, and I should stick to what I do. But then I thought about that story, and about, like, the only way that we solve these problems is by making that connection. And empathy is what makes us human beings. And trying to imagine what it is to be in the shoes of someone else is what makes us human. So, no, it's not our music, but that makes it more interesting, that we're trying to imagine what these musics are when we put them together.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said. And all of those synergies are present in this music, and I'm not sure that I can steer us into a better place than that. Does anyone else have any thoughts about, having now had the first performance of your pieces, are there any other reflections on the journey to this point? What's ahead? You have another performance tomorrow night. Any other thoughts from any of our composers?
I would just say that the process of putting this together meant that we all had to be vulnerable and open to understanding different perspectives and developing empathy and being students of one another, to learn traditions. I actually know a lot more about funk than I do about klezmer music. So, like, growing up. So I'm learning traditions within my own culture that I didn't know. The soundtrack of my childhood was Breakwater. And some of them were here tonight, actually, which is Philly's great R&B band. I think we can learn a lot about ourselves through these relationships and each one of our perspectives, So that for me was the sort of high point of this project. the individual relationships that we've developed and the understanding of one another.
I want to say one thing.
Please.
Because I bugged everybody. I bugged Helen, Matt. I'm the raucous poet that says it all. I'm like, what am I going to say? Ah, the angst I have felt on the approach to this thing. I will not lie. All right? Laying in a thinking, overthinking, calling, making calls, asking questions, polling people. I was just like, you know, trying to do the right thing. I think we could possibly have created a new kind of right thing as far as I'm concerned. I was very concerned. I'm a worrying Philly daughter of a Catholic Italian woman. Hey, it's a lot of worry, a lot of self-guilt. You know, I want to. I think I will always be, like, in this moment, the one of us that gives a look and tells you all how hard we worked as human beings together without knowing each other, most of us, intimately and personally. And now, yeah, we might not know a whole lot about personal lives, but you do. I mean, my poem told a lot. But I just kept saying wow when everyone was coming back from the stage after the lab. I'm just like, wow, 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 wow. So that is my consensus. Wow.
Yes. Yes. Well, I will echo that thought. Wow, what an amazing evening. Thank you all for being here, and thank you especially to these amazing musicians and the musicians who are backstage. Generate music. Congratulations to all of you, and man, I can't wait for the album. But thank you,
Thank you so much.
and good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
Wow.